Hello everyone, welcome back to another video of PHP tutorials. So in this video we are going to learn about Composer. So in the last part of this PHP tutorial we have seen how we have separated our classes into separate files, and then we have used this line to require them, and once we have added that to our code, then we can start initializing the objects. Okay, but now last time we have seen that if there are multiple such classes that you want to include, then you will have to write those many require statements, right? So now this will immediately become not it will complicate your entire code. So what normally we use is we try to autoload the classes. Now there are many ways, but the most popular way that we nowadays autoload is with the help of Composer. Okay, so let's see how to do how to handle that. So let's do Composer. Okay, so you can search, so get composer.org. so this is the website. So what is Composer? Composer is basically a dependency manager. So if you want to extend your application with third-party libraries, you can use that along with autoloading of the classes. Okay, so that is where we use Composer. Okay, now setting up Composer is now very easy. You just have to click on this download button, and you can see how to set it up on various systems. But for Windows, you can, if you are using a Windows system, then you can just click over here and download the setup and install it. Okay, provided you already have PHP installed. So this is very important. So you should have PHP installed and should be available in your path. So if that is the case, then you can directly download this setup and install it. Okay, now for installing PHP, you can either go to their website and download the binaries and add the path to the environment variables, or if you are not well versed with how to edit the environment variables, then you can simply use any server softwares like XAMPP or WAMP or Laragon or something like that, which does it for you. Okay, so you can use that, and that will also install PHP and will be available through the command line. And after that you can install Composer. Okay, so once you have installed Composer, then what happens is, let me just clear my command line. So now what we can do is you can actually do Composer. So now in your command line you will have a new command called Composer. If you type Composer and press enter, you can see all the various commands that is available through this particular Composer. So now what I want to do is first make this particular project under Composer, right? So you just have to do Composer init and press enter. This will start a wizard. So there you will have to exactly specify what all things you are going to call your package name, your vendor name, etc. So the defaults are fine, so just keep pressing enter, and license, everything is fine. So here when it says do you want to define your dependencies, I usually say no and no. Once that is done, it will show you what it has generated. So here you can say yes to generate the configuration, right? So you can see a new file called composer.json is added. So you can see this is the file that it has generated. Okay, now once this is generated, now we can run Composer install, and it will check for if there is anything to be installed, and uh, any packages that needs to be installed. So if there is nothing, then it will just create a lock and composer lock file, and it will also create a vendor file which actually has that autoload file, so which is what we are going to use. Okay, now this is a very important file, autoload.php. So let me show you how we are going to use this. So now instead of doing all these things like this, what we are going to do is I'm going to do a require once, and here I'm going to specify vendor and autoload.php. Okay, so I'm just going to include one file, that is vendor autoload.php, and this will help, this particular composer will now help us in finding where are the classes defined. So once we do this, and if the composer can find the classes that you are defined, then you don't need to require each and every class separately. Okay, so once this is done, we can actually use this single line of code, and now this code, that is this autoload file, will actually autoload all the classes whenever it is called. Okay, so whenever I call Apple, so it will automatically include the Apple class for us with the help of Composer. Okay, so let us see how it is done. So before right now the composer doesn't know where your classes are. So for that, what you have to do is you just have to open Composer, and here uh, in after the require you can actually do autoload, right? And here in the autoload you can actually do various types of autoloads. So you can see there it shows us 5 different types of autoloads that is possible. So you can do class map, you can do files, you can do PSR0, PSR4 standard. Okay, so PSR0 and PSR4 we will look in another video where we will be dealing with namespaces, but for the time being we'll be looking at class map. And over here you just have to provide the location of your file. Okay, so where are all your data, all of your data being stored. So I will just say classes, and that's it. Okay, so my all my classes, that's why I've saved everything inside a folder called classes. Okay, so I'm just saying map all the classes which are inside the classes folder. Okay, so once I do this, now immediately if I try to run this, and you can see it is not able to find the Apple class. Okay, that is because even though we have added this, so the composer needs to generate the cache so that it knows it has to read the folder that you have done. Okay, so whenever you change this particular composer.json file, you should immediately run composer and dump auto load. Okay, so basically you just have to regenerate the auto load cache, and once it is generated, now composer knows that there are these 3 classes, Apple, Orange and Pear. Now if you try to run this, you can see it directly works, right? So now all these classes that we have uh, called, they are not included anywhere in the code, right? But only this autoload is included, and this autoload loads all these classes automatically. Okay, so now let's add another class over here. Okay, so and let's see what whether the composer can find out or not. Let's say okay, so I'm going to make watermelon.php, right? I'm going to take the code from here and paste it over here, and let's call this as watermelon. Okay, so that is the class. So I've done this. Now let's come over here and try to call this. So watermelon, and let's call this D and D. Okay, so let's save it and let's try to run it and see what happens. So now you can see right now the class is not yet found. Okay, so you can see the watermelon class is not yet found because you have changed the classes that was there. Okay, so whenever you change the composer.json or I mean the class map, if you add new folders to the class map or you add new classes to the this particular classes folder, okay, so you have to run composer dump autoload again. And once the cache is regenerated, now you can actually run this and you can see you get apple, orange, pear, watermelon. Okay, perfect. So this is how you can use composer to auto load your classes. Okay, now this is not only classes it can auto load. It can auto load a normal file also. Let me show you that. So let's suppose we want to create functions .php. Okay, so we want to have a file called functions.php. Okay, now we can have, let's say, a simple file which has just one function, which is, let's say hello, and inside that there is only one thing. Okay, so this is the only statement that is inside. So now this is going to be a normal function. Right now I want to call this function inside over here. Okay, now it's very simple. You just do include or require once that particular file, and then you can actually call it. Let me show you. So let's say hello. Okay, and okay, so now right now if I try to run this should give me an error because say hello is not defined. So now if you want this to be defined, then you have to include this functions.php over here in this file. Okay, but thanks to the composer we already have autoload included, so you don't have to worry about adding any other require statements. Okay, so what you can do is you can come to composer. Now it is this functions.php is outside the classes, and also it is not a class, right? So to autoload this particular file, what we can do is we can add another element and we can say files, right? And inside this we can say which file do you want to autoload. So the file is, you should give the exact path of it, but because we are on the same root folder, the functions file is also on the root folder, so we can directly write functions.php and that's it, right? And now it should get the result. Okay, but again whenever you change the composer.json autoload or you change the files, I mean you add the files, you will have to run composer dump autoload. Okay, so let me show you and run this. Okay, and then if I try to run, you can see everything works out of the box, right? So apple, orange, pear, watermelon, and even the function that was there, I have not included it over here, but it is coming from the autoload directly. Okay, so say hello is also working. Okay, now let's suppose you add a new function. Let's call it say hello 2 and let's call it hello world 2, right? So if this is the function, then you don't have to auto load it again. Okay, because you are not adding a new file, rather you are just changing that particular file. Okay, so you don't have to autoload dump autoload now. Okay, so you can see it still works. Okay, so the basic idea is whenever you create a new class, okay, or basically whenever you create a new file which the composer doesn't know, then you will have to run composer dump autoload to let the composer know that there is a new file. Okay, once it is added inside the composer cache, then you don't have to do composer dump autoload again and again when you change the contents of the file. Okay, so that is one thing to note. So that is it for this particular video. I hope it was informative. Thank you everyone.